Karen complained about kids' basketball game. Turns out she stole their ball. The basketball thudded against the pavement, a rhythmic heartbeat in the fading summer light, until Karen's shrill voice sliced through the air like a knife. "You kids are a menace. This noise is driving me insane." Her words weren't just a complaint, they were a declaration of war. Spat from the porch of her pristine suburban home. The neighborhood kids, a scrappy group of teens who'd turned the local park's basketball court into their sanctuary, froze mid-game. Jamal, the unofficial leader, dribbled the ball one last time, his eyes narrowing as he sized up Karen, her arms crossed and her lips pursed in that trademark scowl. She wasn't just annoyed, she was out for blood, and the court was her battlefield. For weeks, Karen had been the neighborhood's self-appointed enforcer. She'd call the cops on barbecues for excessive smoke, report unleashed dogs for public endangerment, and once even demanded the city remove a perfectly good bench because it attracted loiterers. But this time, she'd set her sights on the kids' basketball games, claiming the noise disrupted her peaceful evenings. The truth, nobody knew why Karen was so hell-bent on ruining their fun. But her complaints had already gotten the park's hours restricted. The kids now had to clear out by 6 p.m., cutting their games short just as the summer heat finally cooled. Jamal wiped sweat from his brow and stepped forward, his voice steady but sharp. "Ms. Karen, we're just playing ball. We're not hurting anyone." His friends nodded, their sneakers scuffing the asphalt as they backed him up. Karen's eyes glinted with something almost gleeful, like she thrived on the conflict. "You're disturbing the entire street," she snapped, "and I'm done tolerating it. I've already called the city. They're sending someone to shut this court down for good." The kids gasped, their murmurs rising like a storm. The court was more than a slab of concrete. It was where they laughed, fought, and forgot the weight of their teenage lives. For Jamal, it was where he'd learned to lead, to trust his team. For Mia, the quiet girl who just made the varsity team, it was where she found her confidence. Shutting it down wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a theft of their joy. As Karen stormed back to her house, her heels clicking with purpose, the kids huddled. "She can't do this," Mia whispered, her voice trembling. "Can she?" Jamal shook his head, but doubt crept into his eyes. Karen had a knack for getting her way, and the city always seemed to listen. But something about her latest crusade felt personal, like there was more to her vendetta than just noise. The next day, the kids returned to the court, determined to keep playing until the city's decision came through. But something was wrong. The basketball hoop was bent, its metal warped as if someone had yanked it down with force. The nets were gone, and crude graffiti sprawled across the court, "Go away!" The kids stared, stunned, their sanctuary violated. "Who would do this?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jamal's eyes darted to Karen's house across the street. Her curtains twitched, and for a split second, he swore he saw her smirking. "She's behind this," he said, his voice low but certain. The others weren't so sure. Karen was a nuisance, but vandalism, that seemed extreme, even for her. Still, the seed of suspicion was planted, and it grew with every passing day. The kids didn't give up. They pooled their money to buy a new net, fixed the hoop as best they could, and kept playing, their defiance a silent middle finger to Karen's complaints. But the tension in the neighborhood thickened. Parents started whispering about the vandalism, and Karen's name came up more than once. She doubled down, showing up at the next city council meeting with a petition signed by a handful of her cronies, demanding the court be bulldozed for a community garden. The kids caught wind of it and showed up too, their voices shaking but resolute as they pleaded to keep their court. That's when the twist came. At the meeting, an unexpected ally stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, the reclusive old man who lived at the end of the street. He rarely left his house, but there he was, leaning on his cane, his voice gravelly but firm. "I've been watching that court for years," he said, his eyes locking onto Karen. "Those kids aren't the problem. But I saw something odd last week, someone sneaking around the park at night, carrying a basketball and a can of spray paint. looked an awful lot like you. Karen. The room erupted in gasps. Karen's face flushed crimson, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. That's absurd, she sputtered. I would never, but Mr. Thompson wasn't done. He pulled out his phone and played a grainy video from his security camera. It showed a figure unmistakably Karen, her blonde hair catching the streetlight spray painting the court and yanking at the hoop. In her other hand, she clutched a basketball, one that looked eerily like the one the kids had been using for months. The kids exchanged looks, their shock giving way to fury. That ball, it was their ball. The one they'd been missing since the vandalism started. Karen hadn't just complained. She'd stolen their property, defaced their court, and tried to pin it all on them. The realization hit like a tidal wave, and the room turned on her. Parents who'd once stayed neutral now glared, and even her petition-signing friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The council meeting became a battleground. Jamal stood up, his voice steady but burning with anger. You didn't just complain, Miss Karen. You tried to destroy our court, our game, our place. Why, what did we ever do to you? Mia joined him, her shyness gone. You stole our ball? You broke our hoop? You wanted us gone so bad you broke the law, the crowd murmured in agreement, their sympathy swinging firmly to the kids. Karen's composure cracked. You kids don't belong here, she shouted, her voice raw with desperation. This neighborhood used to be quiet, respectable, before you turned it into a zoo. Her words only dug her deeper, exposing the ugly truth her crusade wasn't about noise, it was about control, about her vision of a perfect neighborhood that didn't include these kids. The council didn't hesitate. They rejected Karen's petition unanimously, citing her vandalism as grounds for further investigation. The kids' court was saved, and the city even promised to repair the damage. But the real reckoning was yet to come. The next morning, the neighborhood woke to a new sight, Karen's pristine lawn, once her pride and joy, was covered in basketballs. Dozens of them, donated by neighbors, rolled across her grass, a silent but powerful message. A handwritten sign on a wooden stake in her yard read, Karen's Chaos Stealing Joy. The kids hadn't done it. Mr. Thompson and a few parents had organized the protest, a poetic act of justice that left Karen humiliated. Karen tried to fight back, filing complaints about the basketballs, but the neighborhood had turned, her allies abandoned her, and the police, now investigating her vandalism, weren't interested in her sob story. She was charged with property damage and theft, and the local news picked up the story, branding her the basketball bandit. Her reputation was in tatters, her control over the neighborhood shattered. The kids, meanwhile, reclaimed their court. The city fixed the hoop, repainted the lines, and even added new benches. Jamal and Mia led the first game on the restored court, the thud of the ball echoing louder than ever. But they didn't gloat. Instead, they invited the neighborhood to join, turning the court into a true community space. Even Mr. Thompson showed up, cheering from the sidelines, his cane tapping in rhythm with the game. Karen's house went quiet after that. She stopped coming outside, her curtains always drawn. Some said she was planning to move, unable to face the neighbors she'd alienated. Others hoped she'd learned her lesson, but nobody held their breath. Her downfall wasn't just about a stolen ball or a vandalized court. It was about the cost of trying to control others, of letting bitterness poison what could have been a community. As the sun set on the court, Jamal tossed the ball to Mia, who sank a perfect shot. The kids cheered, their laughter filling the air. They'd won more than a game, they'd won their place, their voice, their right to belong. But the question lingered, how far should someone go to protect their peace? And when does that cross into harming others? What do you think? Where's the line between right and wrong in a story like this? Share your thoughts.